Hello everybody, this is Kill Me Horde, and I'm starting up a new game here. It's called it's called Dagon by H.P. Lovecraft. These are the DLC over here for it. As far as I'm aware, it's a narrative puzzle adventure. Dagon is a faithful interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since
I
by
don't even have
tonight
to
I
read
shall
it
be
now.
no more.
Blah 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 blah. Oh, I'll have to read things. Lovecraft's wait, am I playing as H.P. Lovecraft? I might be playing as H.P. Lovecraft, which is going to be strange to me. As to my letter, is peculiar. I write such things exactly as easily and as rapidly as I would utter the same topics in conversation. Indeed, epistolary expression is with me largely replacing conversation, as my condition of nervous prostration becomes more and more acute. I cannot bear to talk much now, and I am becoming as silent as the spectator himself. My loquacity? My loquacity extends itself on paper. Like, these are like quotes from letters. Throughout his life, Lovecraft penned around 100,000 letters to his friends and fans, out of which about 10% survived to this day. But his tendency to endless correspondence was of relatively late growth. In youth, I scarcely did any letter writing. Thanking anybody for a present was so much of an ordeal that I would rather have written a 250-line pastoral or a 20-page treatise on the rings of Saturn. Selected letters, 1929 to 1931, H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft would often skip meals to afford postage. Like, I don't want to learn about Lovecraft. I can't even turn around. Anything interesting about these cans? Or that lantern? No.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable.
Opium.
I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast
maybe
myself
cocaine.
from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Heck yeah, let's go for it, HP, my boy.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling.
Oh, it was morphine.
When you have read these hastily scrawled pages,
I forgot morphine
guess,
exists.
though never fully realize why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Because you're crazy? A thing? A thing? Morphine. Oh, this is just like the history of I don't know what's happening. Oh, I didn't get to read that. Whatever. We'll go to the next thing. Something about morphine.
In one of the most open
and now I'm looking at a boat. This game was not rated whatsoever by any sort of critics, so I was worried about it. Supercargo fell a victim to the German Sea Raider. That must be a German. A sign! Lovecraft in the Great War. Dagon was written around a month after U.S. entered World War I. He was interested in its course. He composed many poems in which he gave encouragement to soldiers and commented on the events unfolding in Europe. He tried to enlist, so I'm going to assume he wasn't able to. Some time ago, impressed by my entire uselessness in the world, I resolved to attempt enlistment despite my almost invalid condition. I argued that if I chose a regiment soon to depart for France, my sheer nervous force, which is not inconsiderable, might sustain me till a bullet or piece of shrapnel could more conclusively and effectively dispose of me. But even though he passed the physical exam, his mother prevented him from going to the war. She has threatened to go to any lengths, legal or otherwise, if I do not reveal all the ills which unfit me for the army. Okay. Was he just See, like, I don't know a lot about H.P. Lovecraft. I do read his works every once in a while, but I'm wondering. I'm thinking he was just suicidal that whole time. Oh. Oh no, cannon fire. We're all gonna die.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation. So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
So I am playing through Dagon. The Huns. The history of the Huns. But this is about the Germans because the British called them Huns in World War One. German Emperor William II said essentially put himself as similar to King Attila the Hun. They refused to take prisoners. War crimes, am I right, guys? Oh, I'm walking now. What is that? This game's kind of whack. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it.
Indeed was the discipline of our captors that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Interesting. I don't know how, but you managed that. Where's my sign? There's always a sign. You know what I mean, that like weird claw thingamabob. Oh, well, I'll just go ahead and go.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator.
Sun, stars.
Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
You better start rowing, boy. I just find it amazing that he took provisions and a boat, and the Germans did not do anything about it. Oh, I was supposed to look at the sun. Perhaps.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun.
I can turn around.
For some passing ship, or to be cast
like
on
the
the shores of
Exorcist.
some habitable land.
It just goes really fast over. Back to it. What the heck? Oh, I saw the sign, I didn't click it.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue.
I feel like I'm just being read a story.
Whilst I slept.
Ooh, here's some meat.
Its details I shall never know.
I hope
for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Oh god, squids! Squids! Why is it undulating like that? Hello, Squiddy. Squilliam Fancy Sun, if you will.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see.
It's undulating. Undulating. Look at that undulation.
And in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
Wow. I've never actually played a game like this, to be honest with you. Just never played a game like this. It's like it's reading a story to me.
For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain.
Squid?
Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable silence and barren immensity.
I just realized I accidentally stopped my recording for a second, so you might have missed a couple words there. So, perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity.
There was nothing within hearing, and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear.
Yeah, no, I fully understand that. I would be completely scared if I was grounded this far into black goop.
The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Yeah, like, look at how dark it is with that sun actually shining right now. It's like I'm not even on Earth. Fish! Squiddy. Origins of Dagon. Dagon seems to be inspired by Fishhead. Short novel by Irvin S. Cobb about unnatural affinities between a hybrid idiot and the strange fish of an isolated lake. Which is... Alright, so Dagon by H.P.Lovecraft seemed to be inspired by Fishhead, which was inspired or written about another work by H.P. Lovecraft. Which is just wild, I think, that it's like that. Lovecraft's interest in the topic stemmed from his aversion to fish and sea smells. He doesn't like fish, he doesn't like the sea. This explains a lot of his stories. As
I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths.
That's a wild theory, and I don't want to believe that theory. I mean, I'm sure it could happen, but this much? No.
So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might.
Oh my god. I just now noticed how that's undulating like that. Look at that thing.
Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
Dead things in italics. Looking for the symbol. No symbol. Next.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
Ooh.
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time.
I hide in the boat because I'm sticky and messy.
That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
I don't think you're gonna find anything but Dagon himself. I'm trying to find those symbols. Because they just don't exist sometimes.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease.
I don't think this is dry enough to walk upon with ease.
The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
You just said your goal like 2 minutes ago. You said you were gonna go find the sea. Or the evidence of the sea. What is this? It's like a rock or something? Ugh. Gross.
All day I forged steadily westward.
Oh my
guided
God.
by a faraway hummock which rose
What
higher
is
than any
that
other
thing?
elevation on the rolling desert.
I'm heading toward that thing. What the heck is this? Like a bones and such. Like bones. Squish, squash. Crab leg. A whale! Insert horrible whale joke here. Whale, would you look at that? I'm gonna keep going now before I keep going. I'm gonna keep continuing
That
before
night,
anything else happens.
I encamped, and on the following day still travelled towards
I
the
would
hummock,
not camp
where that
next to
object
whatever this
seemed
is about.
scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
I would not camp near whatever the heck this crap is on the ground. To the mountain. The mountain has the answers I seek.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharp
Looks
relief
very
from
large.
the general surface. Too weary to ascend.
And this just appeared on the
shadow of
ocean.
the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain,
Moon.
I was awake in a
Gibbet.
cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more.
The gibbous.
Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again.
You had a nightmare.
And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset.
Strange that he has more energy at night.
Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Yes, let's climb the mountain. Symbol, the loner. Contrary to popular opinion, Lovecraft was not an ever-frowning, eccentric, grumpy loner. He considered himself to be a person who appreciated humor and other things. Moreover, he would often meet with friends in his apartment or at various cafes in Brooklyn and Manhattan. At times, his social life was so intensive his work would suffer for months. There was a point when he finally decided he needed to put an end to daily meetings and loitering in New York cafeterias and resorted to hiding at home and reading with the main room light turned off, pretending he wasn't there whenever a friend knocked on his door. He hermited. He is a hermit crab of a man. He also had another method of deterring his guests, which involved greeting them in a bathrobe with an unmade bed visible in the background and piles of paper scattered across the floor. Man, if I went to a friend's house and he opened up his door, which for some reason you can see his bed and stuff in the background, if he opened up his door and he was just in a bathrobe, his bed was a mess, his whole room was a mess, I would also leave. I fully understand that. Lovecraft's
I have
friends.
said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me.
It didn't seem
But I
very
think
horrific.
my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon.
Canyon.
Those black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world.
I can't look down to see it.
Over the rim
There we
into
go.
the fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost.
You know, I gotta say, a lot of people rag on H.P. Lovecraft, but his use of wording is amazing, I think.
Hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
Oh, I have to zoom in on it. Oh no. Let's go.
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent. Whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do that. Not like I have a choice. But I'm going down this mountain.
Urged
Regardless.
on by an impulse which I cannot
A square.
definitely analyze, I scrambled with
Rectangular
difficulty down the rocks
object.
and stood on the gentler slope beneath,
A rectangular object.
gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated.
Oh, let's just give it a word that doesn't exist yet.
All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me.
Rectangle.
An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
Oh, the ground looks very perpendicular to me. Moon. Crunchy, crunchy.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself.
Anyone seen 2001: A Space Odyssey?
But I was conscious
Just
of
a
a
slab.
distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature.
Oh, you think? Look at that.
A closer
Thing's
scrutiny
massive.
filled me with sensations I cannot express.
Like nature's gonna make a massive square at the bottom of a chasm. Or a massive
For
rectangle, I should
despite
say.
its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young,
I still don't believe your
I
theory
perceived
here.
beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith,
The monolith.
whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely had the warship.
Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain
If I was an
thrill of the
ancient creature, I would be
scientist's or
worshipping that.
archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Squares. Squares. Examine surroundings, he means get closer to the thing.
Now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering
Oh, it's
steeps
making symbols.
hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my
Interesting.
feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith.
We're just giving words to it. Cyclopean to make it seem more important. I would have just said singular if I was writing this book. That's probably why I can't write an interesting book.
On whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
Yeah, it looks kind of whack. Symbolism. No
The
symbols.
writing was
Oh, how am I
insistent
reading this?
It's unknown to me, and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books. Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. They got like a seahorse over there, too. Shark. Yeah, right there, about the middle. That's the great shark right there, the hammerhead shark.
Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose
Like the
decomposing
lionfish?
forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Oh, I forgot that we didn't really know about squids for a long time. Like that one.
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré.
I don't know what a doré
I think
is.
that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men. Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces
You mean
and forms I dare
mermaids?
not speak in
Mermen?
detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
He's just calling out other authors with this. It's like, oh, it's grosser than whatever Poe and Bulwer can imagine.
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet.
Fish people.
Shockingly wide and flabby lips.
Fish people.
Glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant.
The people from Innsmouth, if you will.
Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
Ooh, never mind, not fish people, not the
I
Innsmouth people.
remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size,
Dagon's people.
but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe.
I
Some
doubt it,
tribe
bro.
whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
Interesting thought process there. Ancient symbol? No symbol? Ah, symbol. Piltdown Man. He used the latest scientific discoveries as inspiration for his work. He would even update his stories at the last moment in order to make sure they reflected the latest breakthroughs. So unfortunately it wasn't without its flaws, because the Piltdown Man was a fraud, a paleoanthropological fraud. Somebody was just screwing around with the missing link. It was a forgery. Wow. Wow. Charles Dawson. Trying to be like another Charles. Being a con man. It turned out that the fossils of the previously unknown early human consisted of a human skull, the jaw of an orangutan, and chimpanzee teeth. Oh my god.
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist,
Yeah?
I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it.
Saw what?
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
Oh! Oh! The game just lagged out.
Fiend-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster.
Whoa, what is that?
About which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds.
Dagon?
I think I was mad then.
Yeah, that's a
My
fair
frantic
reaction to
ascent
seeing
the
that.
slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little.
Up I go.
I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
That sounds about right for crazy people. Some crazy people, to be specific.
distinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
I think everything here is about to be covered up by the ocean again, so I'm just going to be fucking around with the boat, you know? I'm going to flip it over, sit in it, let it get filled up with water.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital.
What a jump in space-time.
Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean.
I think you were delirious. You drank the
I
seawater.
had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention.
I think what happened was he drank the seawater and he started having visions. The seawater, don't ever drink ocean water.
Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing.
Drinking seawater will screw with
to
you.
Insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
Journalist. He was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. He wrote a journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. He was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticism to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again for the first time since his teenage years. Dagon is one of the short stories written during that period. There's an excerpt here, if you want to read it. Explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. I'm leaving. Or not. I'm just opening the door from the distance with my mind powers.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist.
What does that have to do with
amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Fish god? Wait, where am I actually supposed to do? That's where I'm supposed to go. Dagon. Dagon? Dagon. It was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, which was Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem and an underworld prison warder in one of the Babylonian texts. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in Hebrew, the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's work, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that resides in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. I was going to read that one because it has information that interests me.
Perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
Ah! Why did my sight teleport? Look at this. August Derleth and the Cthulhu Mythos. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's works after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions involved introducing the good versus evil doctrine. He was a devout Catholic, to the Cthulhu Mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. It's also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu Mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. That's good information to know. Next, to the clock. I must stare at it. Hello. Beautiful clock. Wait, am I not gonna speak? No, I had to walk to the clock to leave. Apparently.
It is at night, especially
Back in my
when the moon
apartment.
is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave.
Now, I must say, morphine probably wasn't the way to go there, bud. Probably not. Should have went to one of those mental places
So
and got a
now
different drug.
I am to end it all, having written a full
Like
account
cocaine,
of the
you-
information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Am I gonna kill myself on camera? Lovecraft on tobacco and alcohol. He hated tobacco. He didn't hate alcohol, but he had a strong opinion about it. Never drank it, never wanted to. He thought it was disgusting because it screwed up your mind. He doesn't care what other people do. It was also Prohibition time, so yeah, Prohibition time. I was just summing up all that.
I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm,
I'm telling you, you drink the ocean water,
only
dude.
a freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man of war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply.
Yeah, I want to see
I
it.
cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed,
My God.
worshipping
Who
their
knows?
ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of
Is that
water-soaked
Dagon?
granite.
Hello,
Dream
Dagon.
of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst
Oh, there's a lot of 'em.
pandemonium.
They're attacking New York. No. Wham.
The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
Didn't I just chug my poison? I think I just chugged my poison and I'm hearing stuff. Your rent
Shall
stew.
not find me.
Ah! Ah!
God, that hand!
Oh God. It's a fish.
The window! The window!
The window, I say. Why was I way here? The window. Oh yeah, I killed myself. That was a crunchy fall too. Dang, ever plane! Yeah! Well, that's the end of Dagon by H.P. Lovecraft. A very, very immersive story that I wasn't expecting. Well, I'm going to end this here. I'll see you all in the next video.